Welcome to a new episode of Unity Talks. If you clicked on this channel, there's a pretty good chance that the next conversation will be also about you. My guest today is Gavin Bonner. He's a magician specialist in construction, an expert at all facets of real estate development, and a very important addition to the YUNITY Park construction site. Gavin, thank you for accepting this invitation, and let the story begin. Well, thank you for being here. I know that it took a village to bring you downstairs to our studio. I have to confess, we have a very warm connection, although we both work in very hard industries. You with the concrete calculations, iron and whatever else you're doing, for which I hold a lot of respect. And me with a harder material than concrete and iron, I work with people. So yeah, bit that. So despite your profession, which is in construction and engineering and developing all kind of landmarks, I would dare to say. Tell us just a little bit of where the life path took you before you landed in Romania, got married, and let's make a trip out of this rather than a CV kind of expose.
Sure. Well, I started obviously in the UK. Left school at 18 with the desire not to go to university. I wanted to get out into the real working world. So that caused the first discussion with my mother. Obviously, mothers are very protective and want to see a future. So she said that if you're going to do that, you need a job that allows prospects.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, very wise words. At the time I was against it, but so I went into construction. It was something I was always interested in. Started with a company called Shepherd Engineering in Northampton. Northampton's my hometown, so it was literally a 3-mile drive down the road. Started on my first day, to which they kindly informed me that part of my joining their company was to go to university. So I ended up going there anyway. I did a part-time course for 6 years in Northampton and Nottingham-Trent University to get my degree in quantity surveying. During that period, just to name a few projects, hopefully one will ring a bell. I did the refurbishment of the Tower of London Jewel House for the Queen. So that was quite an interesting project when I was a young boy.
You're a knight to me.
Yeah, it was good because, I sort of, at that time, I sort of would come out from behind the barriers where all the tourists were in my high-vis jacket, and everyone thought I was part of the displayer at the Tower of London. So I'd be coming out all dressed in my construction, and many tourists were taking pictures of me as if I was part of the Tower of London experience. So from then, I also did a prison. Again, very interesting project. It was in Milton Keynes, called the New Generation Prison. Again, another really interesting
the New Generation, project. Those were the expectations.
Yeah, right? It was kind of funny, actually, because what they did is they imported the idea from America. So instead of having a traditional UK prison, they brought the American concept over, where they have many turrets on the wall. But the difference in America, I think, is they're armed turrets. But in England, the prison guards aren't allowed to sort of carry weapons at that time. So they were stood in gun turrets, and if people were trying to escape, they'd just be like, oh, no, you need to get off the wall. Stop, you need to go back. So,
Bad.
yeah, it was interesting.
Prison break.
Yeah, so that was fun. So I did 6 years in the UK, varying other jobs in London, spent most of my time in London way. And then I got my first opportunity to go to Hong Kong about the age of 23, I think it was. So I left the UK to Hong Kong, which is a very fast-paced city. Very nervous. Not quite sure why I did it. It was one of those, I had a bit of a lull in the UK, and I was wondering what to do next, and basically saw an advert, and I thought, well, that's okay. I'll never get this job. It's far too superior for where I'm currently standing. So I sent off my CV, and to my surprise, they came back and they said, yes, we'd like to have an interview with you. So
Were you the only one?
no, there was probably about 20 of us on the first set of interviews. But because I really did think that I wouldn't get it, I was very casual in the interview.
Always works.
It did, because I then got the call saying you need to come for a second interview. And things started to get a bit real then, because in reality it was sort of like a thought, but it wasn't in my head that I could actually end up going. So I went to the second interview, which was a bit easier, because I walked in and the lady said to me, well, you've got the job. It just now depends who we're sending with you. So all of a sudden everything became really, really real. And I remember it because my nan, when she was alive at the time, I went to her and said, look, Nan, I've got this job and they're sending me to Hong Kong. And I'm pretty scared and I don't really think I should go, and I'm a bit worried about it. But she always came out as grandparents and parents do and said, look, if you don't take this opportunity, you may not have it come again. Said, what's the worst that happened? You go, you don't like it, you come back. She said, if you miss the opportunity, you'll regret it. So that's when I took the plunge. I accepted her idea. And the next thing I know, I jumped on a plane with another guy, which was wise. They took two of us at a time because we were quite young to go abroad back then anyway. I know it's more, people travel more these days, but back in those sort of times, it was really quite rare. So the company always used to take two, so that when one was feeling down and a bit out of suit and homesick, etc., the other may be able to lift them up a little bit. So it was a great idea. So we arrived at the airport, and it was a guy called Dave from Scotland. And I spent 14 hours on an airplane going, excuse me, what did you say? What, pardon? We became lifelong friends. I still know Dave. So that's where I got to Hong Kong. I worked on some big projects over there, which was one of the bigger ones was the Hong Kong Exhibition Centre, which is actually where the UK handed back Hong Kong to China. It was the location where the ceremony took place. So it was an interesting building to do. Life in Hong Kong was very fast-paced for a very young guy. There was a lot of going out and socializing, perhaps a bit too much in hindsight, but that's life. We were young, we were enjoying it.
Life at 23.
It is, yeah. So, as I say, there was a good few of us there. It was
Nana didn't say anything about that one.
No, I think Nan didn't really know what I was getting up to at that stage. I think I was trying to keep it quiet for my mum as well, to be honest. It was reckless times, enjoyable, but a little bit reckless. So that was Hong Kong. From there, we finished and I went traveling for about 6 months, where I went to Australia and did all the adrenaline experiences. So it was the place where we left Hong Kong. We had a little bit of money that we wouldn't have done if we'd have worked in England. So Hong Kong gave us this money boost. So we went to Australia and we could do everything that people can think of. So that's where I did my first parachute jump, the bungee jump, the whitewater rafting, literally any adrenaline sort of activity we volunteered for. Myself and Dave, actually, we did it together again. So we spent, then we realized we were running out of money. Most people call it backpacking, but Dave and I said we won't stay in anywhere that doesn't have room service. So it wasn't really quite your backpacking experience. And then he said, look, I'm running out of money. I'm off home. And I decided to go to Thailand for about 4 months, where I just sort of lay on beaches. I lived with a hill tribe for about 2-3 weeks. The guide took us up there. I was enjoying it quite a lot, so I asked him if I could stay with the tribe. He left, so I was left with the tribe for about 2-3 weeks. And then he came back and collected me on his way back with a new group. So that was quite an experience. And then from there back home, then over to Malaysia, where again, irony of irony, I went for an interview for the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. They were going to be, or they were the tallest buildings to be developed at the time in the world. And when I finished the interview, they asked if I had any colleagues that would like to join. So again, I rang Dave, my colleague from Hong Kong, to only get through to his mother, because that's always the telephone number. Give them your mum, because they stay when you're moving around. So I got through to his mum, sort of said, hi, I've just got a job in Kuala Lumpur on the Petronas Towers. I was wondering if Dave would like to join. To which she replied, Dave's already over there and working on the Petronas Towers. So immediately I gave Dave a ring in Kuala Lumpur, and he picked me up at the airport, and the reunion was back on. So again, Kuala Lumpur followed much the same as Hong Kong.
How old was that?
That would have been 26. I was in Hong Kong for about just over 2 years, then the 6 months traveling.
Yeah.
So then a little bit of time to get the job, moved myself over there. So yeah, I hooked up with Dave again, working on the Petronas Towers. Fantastic building, obviously, but what I do think is when you inform people that you worked on the tallest buildings, they immediately think that you've got to be some sort of superior engineer or project manager. But I can honestly admit, I think it was one of the most disorganized projects. Although the end result was phenomenal and outstanding, it was one of the most disorganized events I'd sort of come across. One of the
landmarks in the skyline of the world.
Yeah, it does. It was enjoyable. I only was involved with the fit out of the interior, so the towers were already existing. We were based on the 11th floor out of 86, I think it is. And the strange thing, up until that time, I'd always worked on mechanical, electrical services. So I was a quantity surveyor, a cost manager for mechanical and electrical services. And I got over to Kuala Lumpur and met my to-be boss. And he said, all right, what are you over for? And I said, I've been appointed the chief quantity surveyor for mechanical electrical services. And he said, no, you're not. And I was like, well, that's what I came for. And he said, well, that guy came last week. You're now chief quantity surveyor in charge of architectural finishes. So immediately my career direction took a bit of a change. He was very complimentary. He said, look, quantity surveying is quantity surveying. Just take that principle and move it across. And to be honest, it worked. I was working with a very good team of quantity surveyors at the time. I know I was leading them, but they had some really good knowledge on architectural finishes. So between us, we managed. But again, it just changed a career direction. I was constantly a specialist in mechanical electrical. All of a sudden, to be told now you're architectural. So you roll with the blows, you take the punches, and just crack on.
Yeah, it's actually you hear this. It's like diagram that you haven't seen before in your life. And I'm thinking, in every switch you made, there were actually not one challenge, but a bunch of challenges that you took, all young people are doing that. You took them with a drop of innocence and a bucket of hope and a tank of excitement. I'm thinking that at so many changes in such a short period of time. Such an intense change in the directions in career, makes you probably resilient to a lot of next bumps in the road.
I honestly think you kind of have to be. I always like the expression being, it's used a lot, but being thrown in the deep end. Basically, you have to learn what you need to do to move forward.
That's that word again, learning.
Yeah, it's always learning. It's, as I say, I turned up, had no idea about architectural finishes when I turned up to Malaysia. And that was it. I was chief of architectural finishes, and I could have just thrown my toys out my pram and said, look, this doesn't work. But the easiest way, my senior boss had faith in me. He said, look, I know you can do it. Just put your mind to it, set up your systems, set up your organizations, and you'll be fine. And it was true, but from that boss, he was very supportive all the way through. He's one, let's say, one of the bosses that I worked for that had shaped my career. I always look up to him and the way he managed people, the way he brought people into teams, the way he was always there to help. There was several times.
So it was management and leadership and mentorship.
But it was friendship as well. It was a manager that became part of your friend group or led you from the front. On the towers, we worked some serious hours in, sort of overnights when work was needed. We'd be doing 24-hour shifts, etc. But he was in the trenches with us. And he was always there. We'd go into the meeting rooms, and he was the one that would bring in a cooler full of drinks or order the pizzas for us. And he would always come round and speak to everybody individually, because there are times you have meetings where you don't want to feel embarrassed, so you don't want to bring up your problem. But when it's in a light-hearted environment, you're more prepared to open up and say, look, these are the issues that I have. And he wouldn't make an issue of them. He would just collect them and say, well, let's meet on the Monday and set up a time where he would then sit down and explain to you what needed to happen. And you would take that away. He just led from the front. I know the entire team would do anything for him at the drop of a hat just because of the way he was. And it's that's always stuck in my mind. You need to be part of something. You don't sit at the top, bark, shout and scream. It gets nowhere. You need to be part of the group. You need for people to want to do what they're doing because they enjoy it. They want to see the right results. And he was a fantastic example of that, certainly for me at a young age, coming through, as you say, changing from one experience to another, and his confidence to say, it's manageable, you'll get on with it. So he was one of the, let's say, leaders that I always look up to in my later years in my career. How would Andy have looked after this? It was, and as I say, the whole team felt the same.
And then Petronas Tower was delivered.
Yeah, Petronas Tower, we finished. Everyone shot their own ways, which is a bit of a shame, but I got a call from the guy that actually I went there and I said I was going to be chief surveyor for mechanical electrical. He got a job on the Palm, the sail, in Dubai. And he rang me up and he said, oh, look, the job's yours. I've already checked with the bosses if you want to come and join. But for some reason, I wanted to go a different direction. So I turned down, let's say, another world landscape job on the map that everyone would know, and actually decided to go to Kazakhstan with a company called Garda and Theobald. And basically, it wasn't even to join a company there. It was basically to land in Kazakhstan on my own and go to the project team porter cabins where they had something. So I was the only one from Gardner and Theobald, and I worked with a Turkish contractor who was so kind. But I landed there. There was no company. I had to establish a company. And Kazakhstan at that time, again, we're going back many years, unfortunately, because I have many years available. But
To go, I meant.
yeah, but it was Kazakhstan at that time was difficult. I hear really good things at Kazakhstan now. Obviously, they have the investment from the oil money, etc. But I got the job when Almaty was the capital, when I went for the interview in the UK. But by the time I'd arrived in Kazakhstan, they'd actually moved the capital to Almaty to Astana. So it was that transition period, and I just thought, crikey, what's going on? I haven't arrived yet, and they've even moved the capital. So I arrived there. Kazakhstan was very, I would say, backward at that stage. Going through customs was a delight. I didn't know what to expect, so I took probably excess money because I thought, well, if the cards aren't working or something, then if I've got money in my wallet, I can always try to find a way out of something. And then it said, are you bringing foreign money into Kazakhstan? So obviously I said yes. They said the value. So I put down the value. When I went to the customs, they sort of said, right, okay, you've declared this amount of money, let me count it. And when he was counting it, there was 2 piles rather than 1. And then at the end of it, he decided to give me 1 pile back and then just look at me to see what I was going to do about the other pile. And I realized what was happening. So I left that with him, and that was my welcome to Kazakhstan. Here's what to expect.
Priceless.
Yeah,
well,
again,
not
baptism
really.
of fire. Got out through customs, the taxis clawing at me, pulling them at me. At that stage, there really were not many expats in Kazakhstan. I met up with a couple, and it just was very tough. Usually, I'm quite fortunate or lucky that English is usually the business language, and that mainly you can get by in a lot of places. I know it's a very lazy thing to do, but that's just how it is. Kazakhstan wasn't like that. Russian was predominantly spoken. To do my shopping, you had to go into a shop. You were supposed to order things, pay, and then collect them. But unfortunately, I didn't know that, and I just started collecting things off the shelves, and before I knew it, there was 7 or 8 shopkeepers all screaming and shouting at me. But again, it was, I have to change. I have to adapt again. I have to understand what I'm living in and how things are done. And again, you find a way. I will honestly say it wasn't easy, but I found a way. I stayed there for a year, and my contract was for 1 year. They asked me to extend 3 months to finish the final project. So I did that. They then asked me to stay on for good, but that was a push too far. And I said, no, I've had my fill. That would be me ending. So, but again, in Kazakhstan, I had experiences that I would get nowhere else in the world. It was just a different place with a different atmosphere. And although it was very tough on me, it was also the place that gives a lot of memories, because you just wouldn't get there anywhere else. There's a lot of things that spark off moments that I myself will laugh at, because it was just a crazy thing, crazy environment, and crazy things to happen. But yeah, but I couldn't stay there, and then I left from there, and that was.
But before that, I mean, we used to be so scared about other cultures, what they mean, what they do, how am I going to behave? how am I going to do my shoppings in a convenience store? Well, now we have problems getting out of the subway station. I'm looking sort of with this. I'm trying to search through my memory if I felt any time uncomfortable, because I've been in Kazakhstan myself, as we talked about this, and how the adrenaline came in immediately in the survivor mode, and you're actually becoming creative.
Yep.
And for your own good, but not to damage others. Not creative in that respect. Okay. And then you're like, whew, another day, and successfully. But then, years after that, you're feeling that the life that you're living in a different kind of environment, where convenience is like a button away, or a call away. You feel I still treasure that kind of experience, probably because you mention it. It's there to stay, and to how do we share this to others? Besides saying, go back in time and see how it was.
Well, there's certainly life lessons. I think as you pick them up, you do bank them away, and that they help you develop into your style and your character. How we share them would be, I guess, a harder thing to answer. I kind of guess that in a way they are shared because of the way that you yourself moving forward interact with new people, that they are in you, and they change the way you feel and the way you act, and they become part of your personality. So I kind of guess when as you develop with those and those past experiences, that when you are interacting with others, those past experiences are being delivered on, even if it's not in story form. It may be the thought pattern or the methodology or the scenario that may come out in the way that you interact. But I guess it would be, it is important that you do share those kind of experiences with others. I know I hadn't really thought about it before. I know they've served me a world of good in my moving forward. That how do I get past this? Here's another hurdle that I'd never seen before. How do I tackle this? And the way my brain operates in that respect. But I hadn't really gone to the extent, as you mentioned, on how would I share this kind of scenario with others. And I guess I haven't done it per se as a thought process, but I think I may have done it subconsciously through my own experiences in the way I present and put forward my ideas. I guess.
Yeah, I heard a lot of examples that when you build an argument to projects and the endeavors that we've been involved together. For example, in that part, it's this scenario. For example, that part, and you mentioned Dubai and Kazakhstan. Haven't heard anything about the adrenaline in Australia, but anyway, when we'll build the zoo only with crocodiles, that probably will come in handy. And it's the ease with in which you put those on the table as an argument. Sometimes, you have to process a little bit. Okay, I know what he's talking about. I'm thinking, I talked to somebody yesterday who told me about the experience they had using the trains in India, or a few days trip, and you think of that very exotically, but then she started talking about the chair, which was very hard, uncomfortable, and the goat that was on top of your head. And then you think about it a little bit, because we have the scenarios about other people's lives, their experiences, and we asked only what we are interested in. And I think that a lot of good experiences and a lot of moments important in somebody's life are so left aside from who we are. And it's like, I play guitar. Oh, you play guitar? Yeah, it's like everybody does, right? So, but when you say, well, I was in Kazakhstan. Ooh, how was it? Cold. Very cold.
It is very cold.
Yeah. Well, we forget how cold it is until we get into it.
I think it's the only place where my eyes are actually frozen. The water on your actual eye, they actually freeze. It is that cold.
What was after that?
So after that was my first visit here.